everybody, this is Brian.
Jason.
And this is the Perfectly Screwed Podcast, episode 126. So, we're going to talk about something about ghost adventures, about actually a very interesting case, because we haven't done much paranormal lately, and I wanted to do a paranormal case. But before we get into it, as I was telling Jason just a second ago, do you know Ghost Adventures came to Marion, Indiana?
I did not.
Yes. They came to a house over there near GM, where GM is. It's on the north side near the glass place. It's over near Park Avenue and shit.
Okay.
But it was funny because this lady said her house was demon-possessed, and she was feeling nauseous in the house and all of this. And they went there. I saw the whole episode. It's retarded as shit. But they went there, and she said her mother's urn was on the table, and she just died. And they had her mother's ashes up there, and they were taking these photos, and they were like, "Do you see that image in the chair?" And doing all kinds of stupid shit, which I never saw any image in any chair.
But Baggins was in town.
No, Baggins was not. Just his crew.
Okay.
And they finally said, "Well, we think your mother's urn is holding the presents in the house." And then they removed the urn, and then the presents went away. I was like, "Hey, get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
Dude. And it was typical Marion trash people, too. Oh, my God. It was a trashy looking house. The lady was wearing like really short shorts, kind of chunky, and she was sloppy, and she's like, I feel nauseous when I'm in the room. I'm like, oh God. This is what we got to put on fucking TV. This is what we want.
That's
right
great.
out here. This is the people you show for Marion. Joe Bob and Jimmy Hole. And,
Who else you gonna get?
Oh God, it was horrible. It was just
Right.
it was insulting to the whole town. And I was like, no, we didn't need to get these two jackasses up here. She's like, I can't live here like this. I feel the presences and I hear my mother's voice, and I'm like, oh God, no. Why we got this two jackasses? Oh, it was sad, dude. I was like, oh, this should not be how our town is portrayed.
Yeah.
I had high hopes for the show too. I did,
Sure.
even though it was Zach, and Ghost Adventures is a complete farce to begin with, and most of the shit he does is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I had high hopes. But no, it was as bad as I thought, and even worse. and it should never been shown. And the thing was, they're coming through Marion right down the bypass, and they're filming Marion. They're like, "This is a pretty small town here," and I'm like, "Oh God, here we go. This is just gonna be crap." And it was horrible.
Yeah. I'll have to find that one.
Yeah, I could give you the season. Hold on, I can look it up real quick so I can give a thing. It's Ghost Adventures House Call Season 2 Episode 4 Horror in Marion.
They spelled horror wrong.
No.
It should have been WHORE, Marion.
It says, the description goes, Zach dispatches the team to Marion, Indiana, where a family believes their home is under siege from a demonic entity. With the mother's health in jeopardy from the disturbing activity, the guys race to find the answers.
Right.
Yeah, they raced all right. It was horrible. It was complete trash. it was the worst. It was bad. And that's saying something, because Ghost Adventures is real bad, and this one was real bad. But anyways, we're talking about another case that actually Ghost Adventures did. He did a whole movie about this one. And this one actually takes place in Indiana too, and it took place in Gary, Indiana. And
Well, this is the house that he purchased.
yeah, he purchased it, and then he did a whole movie about it. Stayed all night in there. Supposedly went blind. Things were moving around. If you watch the movie,
they're theatrical.
Yeah, it's very theatrical.
Yeah.
Supposedly Zach went blind for like 3 days, so he just had to tear the house down because the demons were taking over. But there's a lot about this house that does have legitimate. Whether Zach went blind or not, I don't know. But there's a lot of legitimate things beyond ghost adventures that did take place in this house.
Yeah.
That we know of. And it's called the Ammons haunting case, actually.
Ammons?
Ammons. Ammons.
Okay.
Pardon me. I'm losing my voice. So, it's also known as the 200 Demon House or the Demon House of Gary, Indiana. Okay, so, yes. So,
Gary, home of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, home of Michael Jackson. But, see, the Demon House, which is an alleged haunting and demonic possession, occurred in Gary, Indiana in 2011. Now, LaToya Ammons, her mother, and her mother's name was Rosa Campbell, and her 3 children, they all claim the paranormal activity occurred in the residence. In 2014, it received national attention, and that's when Zach and them went over there. So, in 2011, LaToya Ammons, her mother Rosa Campbell, and 3 children, then ages 7, 9, and 12, moved into a house located at 3860 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Now, do not try to go visit the house because it is not there anymore. Right. Zach bought it and then stayed, did a movie in there, and then tore it the fuck down, which is convenient because nobody else could investigate it.
Yeah, exactly.
See if it's real or anything.
Exactly.
But according to LaToya, days after the family moved in, they claimed black flies kept swarming on the porch. And this was supposedly in the middle of December.
Oh, wow.
Which is, weird.
That's odd.
And they did stuff to kill the flies. They got fly strips. They also sprayed. They even called an exterminator at one point. And the flies would die for a little while, but then a couple days later they would come back. And not only did they see these flies, but neighbors said that they saw the flies. That the flies would be all around the porch. And they wouldn't leave the porch. They would just be in the porch area.
Yeah. Well,
which is also weird.
That's strange, period, because there's no flies in Indiana in December.
Right. But for you to, but also for the flies just to be in one area on a porch.
Yeah.
And to swarm. And they said literally the neighbors and them all said there was thousands of flies that would just be all over this porch, crawling around, sitting there. And if you know, they said the exterminators came, killed them all. And then a couple days later, there's a swarm of flies in the middle of December.
That's strange as hell.
So after this, her mother, Rosa Campbell, started hearing footsteps in the basement and said she heard doors creaking. She said that she also saw a shadowy figure of a man pacing in the living room, and she got scared and ran away. And then she said later on, when she called her daughter in, they found boot prints in the living room. Rosa also said she was choked by an unknown force while she was sleeping.
Damn.
She said she was sleeping, and then all of a sudden she woke up, and she felt like she couldn't breathe and felt like there was hands around her throat.
Oh, shit.
Then her daughter said that they also saw marks around her mother's throat, like bruise marks. And other people said they saw the bruise marks around her throat. The 12-year-old daughter was claimed to have levitated above her bed unconscious during a sleepover with a friend. So her friend's having a sleepover. The friend starts screaming in the middle of the night. So the mother rushes in, the grandmother rushes in. The 12-year-old supposedly was about 3 to 4 feet above the bed, almost touching the ceiling. And not only did they witness this, but her friend, who was during the sleepover, told her parents about it and refused to come back to the house.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board, gone
She
wrong.
said she woke up because she heard a noise, and the girl was levitating 3 to 4 feet above her bed, still asleep.
Oh, man.
And the mother witnessed this, her friend witnessed this, and the grandmother witnessed it. They were said to have prayed. They started praying, and then the girl slowly floated back to the bed. The daughter, though, the 12-year-old, has no memory of the incident whatsoever. She doesn't remember any of it happening. She woke up right after that and was like, why are you in my room? You know, what's going on? And the little girl that was in the sleepover immediately started crying and wanted to go home.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, absolutely, dude.
I'm leaving too.
Dad,
I'm done. We're done.
come over.
Yeah, we're done.
I'm not staying.
Yeah, we're not staying here. We're done.
They're nice.
People are levitating.
They're nice and everything.
Yeah.
We had a pizza. We watched a movie.
Yeah.
But there's some serious shit going on here.
Yeah, she was floating.
Get
We're done.
me the fuck out.
We're done. I'm going home.
Yeah.
The older son, which was the 9-year-old, was allegedly thrown across the room by an unknown force. Again, this was witnessed by the whole family. He was sitting in a chair, and they said all of a sudden he was picked up out of the chair and thrown from the backwards across the room.
Damn.
Yeah. The younger son, his eyes would roll into the back of his head repeatedly, and he would growl and say, "It's time to die and I will kill you," in a voice that was not his. So this went on for a little while, and then the family finally reached out to a physician, Jeffrey Oniyukuwu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeffrey O.
Yeah, Jeffrey O. We're going to call him Jeffrey O. But they reached out to him in 2012. They lived there, not quite a year because they moved in December.
What was he again?
He was a physician, so he was their family doctor.
Okay.
He visited the house, and he noted that he thought their behavior was delusional.
Well, yeah.
He said, look, there's something wrong with his family. So someone from his office, they don't know if it was him or just someone from his office, but they contacted the police. The police arrived, and they immediately thought something weird was going on with the family. And they took the children to a hospital. The older boy was acting rationally, but as they tried to remove the younger boy, he started screaming in a weird voice and thrashing about. So right after this, DCS was called. They were alerted to the family. DCS believed that the children were performing for the mother, that the mother was putting them up to this, and that they were performing to make the mother happy. That this was all an act that the mother made them do.
Okay.
At this time, there was stories being published in outlets like the New York Daily News, and they reported that DCS had allegedly witnessed the youngest boy walking up the wall backwards, which that's not only reported in the news, it was actually in the DCS file, that they saw the young boy walk up the wall backwards, but they were saying he was doing this as a performance for his mother, that he was, how the hell...
So he was just able to walk up...
I guess,
backwards.
yeah.
Damn. Impressive.
A 37-year police veteran captain named Charles Austin witnessed paranormal activity occurring in the house. Then also a photo by the Indianapolis Star showed a shadowy figure when no one was in the house. And they saw, the reporters, by this time reporters were starting to catch on because DCS got involved. The police captain said he saw doors slamming. And he's a 37-year-old veteran. He said, I saw doors slamming. I heard voices in that house. I know what's going on. Now, DCS this whole time is going, no, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And you got a police veteran of 37 years saying, look, I'm not lying to you. I saw things moving. He said he heard voices. He saw doors opening by themselves and slamming shut. He said nobody was in the room, and I saw all this happen. I'm telling you, this is going on. He was so scared, as a matter of fact, that this veteran of the police force of 37 years said, I will not go back in that house.
Well,
You would think at that point, when you have a 37-year-old police veteran that has seen some shit,
yeah,
because this is Gary, Indiana, murder capital of the country.
Sure.
You got a 37-year-old police veteran saying, I'm not going in that house. Something's going on.
I mean, I can understand DCS questioning whether, that, hey, the mom might be...
Yeah, staging it.
She might be
For
out
publicity.
out of her mind a little bit, might be staging this, might be
Right.
having her kids put on an act. But I would think, this is just me, if I'm watching somebody walk up the goddamn walls backwards, that's something I might, hey, I'll take him out of the house. Let's go to somewhere else. Can you do this trick anywhere else? Because if this motherfucker can walk up the walls backwards, right? We should be watching him on TV still.
Right.
Like that's not normal. I mean, screaming, yelling, thrashing about, you know what I mean? All that can be explained. Walking up the walls backwards?
Well, it got to the point that DCS
What the fuck?
actually removed the kids from the house. And only LaToya and her mother were still living there. And this is when the police chief saw this going on. And then, like I said, reporters got involved.
Yeah.
And the Indianapolis Star took a picture of the house when nobody was at home. And they saw someone standing in the window. And there is a clear picture of what they saw.
Yeah.
So the family then hired Father Michael Maganot to perform an exorcism. He interviewed the family on April 22nd, 2012, and concluded that they were being tormented by demons. He performed 3 exorcisms, 2 in English and 1 in Latin. And then LaToya herself tried to perform an exorcism. None of these worked, by the way. Things were still going on in the house. Finally, LaToya, petitioned DCS. She said, look, if I can have my kids back, because at this point DCS said, okay, they interviewed the kids. Things were still going on in the house. DCS finally said, if all this stops, if you just stop this shit, then, we'll work with you to get your kids back. So after all of this started happening, in very, very middle of 2012, she moved to Indianapolis. She said, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah.
And then she went through the process and got her kids back.
Right.
And everything stopped once she moved out of the house.
Right.
So the physician was skeptical of the entire incident, and he said he did not witness any paranormal incidents in the house. He wrote delusions of ghosts in the home and hallucinations. The children had a history of irregular school attendance, and that just fueled the DCS thing.
Yeah.
A complaint was filed in 2009. And in 2012, she tried to blame the irregular attendance on the demonic activities. Some say that the police investigator was a believer in ghosts. So people are saying, oh, well, he already believed in ghosts, so he's automatically. But I, again, say, you can throw skepticism on anything, but I think a hardened police captain working in one of the most crime-ridden cities in Indiana and arguably one of the most crime-ridden cities in the United States, of 37 years, has seen some shit.
Right.
I don't think he's going to lie, especially when he's reporting this to DCS.
Correct.
He gets nothing out of lying.
Correct.
So whether he believes in ghosts or not,
Irrelevant.
yeah, irrelevant. If he says, I've heard voices, I've seen doors opening and closing, and I won't go back in that house, something must have scared him.
Sure.
He's not scared of a guy with a gun, but he won't go back in this house.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's going to put a 37-year reputation on the line.
No.
Just because he's a believer.
Yeah. Now, of course, psychiatrists also said that the children were acting possessed, you know. But again, nobody's going to say, well, yeah, the kids are possessed, you know. There's ghosts. You know, no psychologist is going to say, well, yeah. So, you know. Now, in 2014, Zak Bagans purchased the home for $35,000. He demolished it in 2016 after filming the documentary The Demon House.
So after they moved out,
2 years later, Zak Bagans purchased it.
After they moved out, but before Zach purchased it, nobody else was in the house?
Nobody lived there
Okay.
for 2 years.
Gotcha.
Interestingly, though, interesting on a side note that I was going to say, from the time they moved out till Zak Bagans purchased it, neighbors said they would see lights in the house when nobody lived there. They would also hear doors opening and shutting and saw figures in the windows. Now, a lot of people say that this might have been homeless people. And being Gary, it's possible.
Right.
But, you know, to see lights coming on in the house that A, didn't have any power is kind of odd. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. But he purchased it in 2014, and he did film The Demon House. It was released in 2018. Many people call it the single most compelling documentaries of the existence of the supernatural that they've ever witnessed. Some call it hooey. There's also a 2024 film, The Deliverance, which is based on the events. But if you haven't seen Zak's documentary, okay, and I've seen it, there is some strange things that go on in the documentary. He set up cameras in the house. He stayed there for a few days. Supposedly, he went blind after this for 3 to 4 days, and he was hospitalized, and there is evidence that he was hospitalized. Whether he really went blind or not, I don't know. Because It is Zak.
Of course.
Yeah. But
yeah, anybody can say they're blind.
Right. But he did catch some things on the cameras that I would say is very compelling, because he had cameras set up and he was the only one in the house. And the cameras were in rooms he wasn't in. And you can clearly see tables and shit moving about the house by themselves.
Really?
Yeah. And you can clearly, at one point, like, cameras were actually knocked over. And he was nowhere near them. Now, a lot of people are trying to say he staged it, that he made it up, you know, and he eventually changed it to a pseudo-documentary because he was getting so much flack for it that he said, okay, fine, you know, say what you want to say. But he stands behind the fact that nothing was staged. He said, I did not stage anything in this house, but because you want to give me a bunch of flack for it, we'll call it what you want me to call it. But he said, I 100% stand behind the statement that nothing you saw in that video was staged. He said, 100% everything I showed you on that video happened. He said, yes, we edited it, But he said that when you saw things moving, they were really moving. I was not in the room. There was no wires, no trickery, nothing.
Yeah.
And if you look at the documentary, I mean, you can clearly see things moving. And I've watched it repeatedly, and I never saw any wires. Nothing that would, and he was not in the room. I mean, it was shots from, other rooms in the house where he set up a bunch of cameras. And like one of the cameras literally he's clearly in the other room, and the camera just gets knocked off the fucking tripod and across the room.
Yeah.
You can see the camera scatter, and lights go on and off in the house, and that clearly, what is he, over in the corner flipping the light switch while the camera, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be skeptical about anything. You can throw skepticism on anything paranormal, anything supernatural. And to say it was definitely demons is one thing, it probably wasn't. But could it have been poltergeist activity? Could it have been a haunting? Very possibly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, from everything you said, all the evidence points to something definitely strange going on, dude. Just the flies.
Right.
Is strange.
Right.
That's really weird.
And I mean, of course, your first thing is going to be try to get logical, that the mother is faking it and this and that.
Right.
But maybe she wasn't. You know what I'm saying? And, why wouldn't she just, continue this whole thing later on?
And why does she have neighbors, and witnesses backing her up?
Right.
Why is there a police chief backing her up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And if you want publicity, you think you would stay in the house a little longer than just 6 months. And then,
well,
because you're talking about moving from Gary, Indiana, which is way up north, down to Indianapolis,
sure.
which is way south.
Yeah.
And she had to uproot her whole family to get the fuck out of here and move.
And if it's just a publicity stunt, are you going to go as far as to lose your children to DCS?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's, yeah.
Yeah, the point that at the time when DCS was threatening to take your kids, you think you would have moved at that point and said, oh, well, it stopped.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the other thing is, this is the whole thing. She did not get any money or anything from this.
Yeah.
I mean, the house became very publicized, but she didn't get anything from this. She didn't get a book deal. She didn't do a movie deal,
No, she lost her family.
Right.
Probably thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right. Yeah. You had to uproot your whole family, move them to Indianapolis.
It's not like you just sold the house.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, she was renting.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't even her house to begin with.
Right.
Right. So she was renting the house, and she moved out, and the landlord kept the house for 2 years. Nobody moved in.
So is there any...
And when Zach bought the house, the landlord was happy to give it to him for $35,000 because he couldn't rent it.
Right.
Especially after knowing, all this publicity.
So does anybody know of any history or backstory to the house of why it might have been?
Well, there's a lot
Possessed.
of theories. They know there was some deaths in the house. It was an old house. There is people that lived in it before, which I was reading about, that also said that they heard voices and doors closed by themselves. So she wasn't the first one
Right.
to witness the stuff that was going on there. The people that lived there before said they lived there about 8 months, and they moved out in the middle of the night because they said they couldn't take it. They were being woke up by doors slamming, and they heard footsteps, and they said the landlord wouldn't do anything, and they moved out. And they moved out in the middle of the night. They just took their shit and said, fuck you, I'm done.
Yeah.
And there's previous tenants that said, yeah, they witnessed, weird shit happening in the house. Like shit would be misplaced and moved. And that's what I'm saying. If it was just her saying this,
Yeah.
I'd give you, okay, maybe it's just her. But then you got the previous tenant, 8 months, they're gone. Previous tenant before that was less than a year. They're bouncing. You know what I'm saying? And they all say, yeah, we witnessed shit. And then even after she moves out, neighbors are saying, lights are coming on, man.
Yeah.
Calling the landlord saying, hey, guy, I think somebody's in your house. And then he would come over. There's nobody in the house.
Yeah.
But the neighbors are saying, we saw somebody in the house. We hear doors opening. We see lights coming on. but there's nobody in the house when he gets there. Now, again, given the area, could be a homeless person. You never know. But the thing is, it's just a lot of weird stuff.
But even like
happened
you
in
said,
the
though,
house.
even if it's a homeless person crashing in an abandoned house, he's not going to be able to turn lights on.
Right, because
Yeah.
there's no power.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that went on with this house.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a possessed fucking house.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. At least ghosts. I would say at the very least, poltergeist activity. Something was going on weird.
For sure.
But anyways, this is our episode on the Amon Demon House, the Demon House of Gary. And I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.
Later.